Hello and welcome to my review of Skelter Finale. All the gameplay in this video was captured on a Nintendo Switch console, but the game's also available on PS4 and also PS5 via backwards compatibility. Also something to note, as far as I'm aware, this game will actually be banned in Australia for some, shall we say spicy content. And just one quick thing before we get started, I did obviously end up getting this game early, but not from a review code and not from an early press copy. This is another one of those situations where the online store that I pre-ordered it from just sent it to me early. As far as I'm aware, the game's actually out on October 1st, but yeah, my physical copy just turned up early for some reason. It's happened before with Samurai Warriors 5, for example, and it'll probably happen again, but I just wanted to clear that up. And of course, if you do end up enjoying this video or find it useful, please do consider subscribing to the channel. So then, what is Skelter Finale? Well, it's a first-person dungeon-crawling RPG that features anime-style characters, and it's actually the third game in the series. It continues the story of Skelter Nightmares and Skelter 2, and if you've ever played anything like Etrian Odyssey or Persona Q, then you'll probably have a very good idea of what to expect from this game. As I mentioned, the story follows on from the previous two games, and this game serves as the end of the trilogy. You once again take control of a group of prisoners, Jack and the Blood Maidens, who fought their way up and escaped from the jail. The jail is a sort of living prison for humans which is buried 666 meters underground. Jack and the Blood Maidens themselves are reincarnations of fairy tale characters such as Sleeping Beauty, Rapunzel, and the Little Mermaid. This is of course an RPG, so your characters can all level up by gaining XP from battles, learn new skills and abilities, and be equipped with various stat boosting gear. They even have some abilities that they can use outside of the battle within the dungeons. These are called blood abilities and help with things like exploration or puzzle solving. The game actually has a lot of systems, but there's just so much going on that explaining everything in a lot of detail would be really time consuming. So for the sake of brevity, all you really need to know is that most of the systems from the previous games return here and some new ones have been added. Some of the new additions include the baby mare system, where the Blood Maidens can be grabbed by baby nightmares. This causes some attacks and abilities to become unusable for a while. There's also the zapping system, which basically allows you to switch between different groups of characters in real time. Occasionally, one group may come to a section of a dungeon that they simply cannot pass through. When this happens, you can switch to another group and look for a switch to open the way for the first group. The game also includes two optional side attractions, the first of which is something called the Before Story system. It basically serves as a refresher for players who might not have played the previous two games or may have just forgotten what happened in them. This mode allows you to view all of the story scenes and events from Skelter Nightmares and Skelter 2, including the prologues and epilogues. The second extra edition is found on the main menu screen and is accessed by pressing either L or R. It's called Skelter Locked Up in Love, and it's basically a separate visual novel game within this game, and it's worth noting that it is canonical to the main story. In Japan, it was actually given away as a pre-order bonus via DLC, but with the Western release, they decided to just translate it and put it on the cartridge with the main game. Gameplay-wise, it's pretty much what you'd expect from any popular first-person dungeon crawler, and it's visually very similar to the previous games. You'll be moving around differently themed dungeons using the D-pad, solving puzzles, collecting loot, avoiding traps, and of course, battling monsters. The monster battles occur randomly as you progress through a dungeon, and as you might expect, they are in fact turn-based. Sometimes while exploring, you'll find chests which contain helpful items, and sometimes you'll even encounter a nightmare. Nightmares are essentially invincible boss monsters that will chase you around the dungeon. They'll keep chasing you unless you put enough distance between yourself and the nightmare, which will result in you escaping it. Sometimes they can corner you and you will be forced to fight it. As I mentioned, you can't actually kill it, but if you do enough damage, you can stun it and escape that way. There are of course some other elements to this game, but at this point you probably understand what kind of game this is and what it's all about, so let's move into the personal opinion section, starting with the positives. So this is kinda difficult. I have to be 100% upfront and honest with you, as I always am. I have not really had a great time with this game. And before I say anything else, I'm not saying that the game is bad or anything like that. I can actually objectively see that this is a great game for the genre that it sits in, but it really just wasn't for me personally. Having said that, there are still some positives. I mean, for example, I was really impressed that they added in those extra modes. The Before Story catch-up section and the canonical visual novel are a really nice touch, and they clearly cared about their game and the people that they were selling it to because they added those in for value. They didn't just, make it a deluxe edition edition and charge more money, they actually put more in and charge the same amount. In fact, if you buy the game quick enough, you can get the day one edition at no extra charge, which comes with trading cards, a poster, and some stickers. And while that's not exactly mind-blowing, it is extra stuff for your physical collection, and it is nice to see. The game case also has a reversible cover, which I always appreciate, but one thing I did notice was that it does have a bit of cosmetic paid DLC that really should have just been in the game from the start, and I really can't support that kind of thing, but it is what it is, and as we all know, if people keep buying it, they'll keep doing it. Another thing that I noticed right away was the quality of the anime art. Now, I'm no anime connoisseur or anything like that, but I have watched a decent amount of it and I do play a lot of anime-based games, and I thought all of the characters in this game looked really cool. I really liked the overall design of the characters as well. The fact that they're all based on reincarnated fairy tales was also a really fun concept in my opinion. And I suppose this last section really needs to be said to show you that I genuinely mean no disrespect to this game or its fans, but I just personally didn't enjoy the gameplay. Although having said that, it's clearly very good in terms of this genre. After playing this game, I actually looked up a lot of footage from the last two games and other similar games while trying to figure out what the fan base thought of them. I didn't just want to do this kind of thing where I said, oh, this game isn't for me and just end the review there. I wanted to be respectful, and look into what the actual fans of these games would want. And I can honestly say from what I've seen and played in this game, fans will not be disappointed. It's got numerous systems all working together at once and gives you a lot of depth when forming your party. I could see completionists being lost in this world for easily 70 plus hours, and I never once had any kind of performance issues on the Switch or crashes, anything of that nature. The soundtrack's also pretty good. It's got some really creepy themes for some of the dungeons and a proper anime-esque opening theme, which again was really cool. So this is, I think, a great first-person dungeon crawler, and I mean, it seems to have everything you could want, but sadly, I've just discovered that these types of games aren't really my thing. And without trying to repeat myself, despite the fact that I don't personally enjoy this game, I can objectively see that it is a great game for the fans. The people that are actually going to appreciate and purchase this game. And so with that in mind, we'll just move on to the negatives now, and I'll attempt to explain a little bit more. So here we are in the negative section, and I just want to say that pretty much all of these points are just going to be my personal hang-ups. I don't want to be one of those reviewers who just doesn't like a game and then tries to convince everyone to agree with me for some reason. I mean, what's the point in doing that? I have far more respect for these games, the people that make them, the people that play them, and myself to be like that. So for me, the first thing that started to bother me was the sheer amount of talking in the game. And now I know I can hear people saying that's how it's meant to be, and that's how a lot of anime games work. They have a ton of chatter and story stuff between sections, and that's fine. I'm quite aware that that's how things usually work in anime games. I mean, Tales of Arise was very similar, and I actually listened to every bit of dialogue in that. With this game though, I found it to just go on and on and on, and eventually I just started to skip parts of it. I mean, it's cool that it's got English and Japanese voices, and I think they're played really well, but the opening of the game and the tutorials went on for easily over an hour. And I'll own up to this, but I think me and my brain just weren't up for this type of game right now. I just simply wanted to play something, not listen to something. I was just kind of hoping for a short intro, and then the game would just open up and let me go through the dungeons and level my characters and basically just go at it however I wanted to. I think the issue is just that these games don't have much gameplay to begin with, and I don't mean that as an insult. I just mean, you're using the D-pad to move around and you get into random battles, and then it's basically just menus where you choose attacks, and that's basically it. Other than that, you have a shop you can visit to buy stuff from, and menus for your characters, to equip them and all that stuff, but I guess I just wasn't into what the game had to offer. And it's actually kind of funny because I was really ready to get stuck into this game, and after many hours of just pushing through it, I just didn't enjoy my time with it, and I'm actually a little bit annoyed at myself for it. I was interested in this particular game and this genre for a long time, and then to finally get around to playing it and just not enjoying it whatsoever is really disappointing. Another thing that really stuck out to me was, and I think people might actually agree here, the 3D models for the dungeon itself and the monsters were pretty badly done in my opinion. Design-wise they're fine, but the texture work and the detail is just kinda unpleasant to look at times I think. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, and the Switch is quite an underpowered console, but still I was expecting a little bit more in this regard. The dungeons serve their purpose well enough, sure, and do graphics make a game fun to play? Not really, no. So if you're into this game for its strategy and its stats and the RPG nature of it, then the backgrounds and stuff like that probably aren't going to be a concern for you. And I really don't think there's any more point lingering here in this section. I don't feel like I need to really say any more. It's quite simple. I just happened to pick up a game that I thought I would love, and I just didn't click with it. It really is just as simple as that. It's not that it's factually bad, it just doesn't resonate with me personally. So why don't we move on to the conclusion and recommendation section. I think that Mary Skelter Finale is a fine addition to the relatively niche genre of first-person dungeon crawling RPGs. I'd always wanted to get into these types of games, but sadly, now that I've had the real chance to do that, I've kind of discovered that they really aren't for me. And you know what? That's okay. Not everything is for everyone. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I've done a ton of research on the genre and tried to really, educate myself on what fans of these games like and want. Plus, I've done many hours of gameplay in this game, and honestly, if you're someone who's already into these kinds of games, you can't really go wrong with this one, and I would definitely recommend it to you. On the other hand, if you're someone like me who's never really played these kinds of games properly, but perhaps always wanted to, I would probably be cautious of it. But the thing is, there's never any real guarantees. You could try it and absolutely love it, or you could give it a chance and then wish you hadn't. These games are for a small, specific, and niche fan base, and for those people, again, this is quite easy to recommend. And so ultimately, I gave something a try and ended up liking it far less than I thought I would. It's a bit of a shame, but sometimes these things happen. However, I think it's important not to just crap all over something because you don't enjoy it or because you don't agree with it. I can honestly put my personal feelings aside, stand face to face with this game, and say with confidence that it's really not you, it's me. And so there you go, that's my review of Mary Skelter Finale. I really thought this one would turn out differently, but hey, if you're interested in it, it's available on October 1st, 2021 on Nintendo Switch, PS4, and of course PS5 via backwards compatibility. If you have any questions or you just have something to say, please feel free to leave a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful, I hope today will be the day that I earn your subscription, and if you want to support the channel even further, all the important links are in the video description down below. But with all that said, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.